You know, I've spent 2 decades treating patients at Stanford, and what I'm seeing now absolutely terrifies me. We're living through something unprecedented, and most people have no idea it's happening to them right now, in this very moment. Your brain wasn't designed for the world we've created. Let me be crystal clear about this. Every single day, you're being bombarded with supernormal stimuli that are fundamentally rewiring your neural pathways. Your smartphone, your streaming services, your social media feeds, even the way we eat now, these aren't just habits. They're hijacking the same reward circuitry that responds to cocaine, to alcohol, to every addictive substance I've ever treated. And here's what nobody's telling you. The consequences are catastrophic, especially as we age. Listen to me carefully. Your brain operates on a pleasure-pain balance. It's elegant, it's ancient, and it's incredibly fragile. When you experience pleasure, your brain releases dopamine. But here's the critical part. Immediately afterward, your brain tips in the opposite direction to restore equilibrium. It creates a little bit of pain, a little bit of deficit. That's normal. That's healthy. But we're not living in normal anymore. We're living in dopamine nation. You wake up, you check your phone, dopamine hit. You scroll through news that enrages you, dopamine hit. You binge that series, dopamine hit after hit after hit. You order food that's engineered in laboratories to be irresistible, more dopamine. And your brain is screaming, desperately trying to compensate, tipping further and further toward pain, requiring more and more stimulation just to feel normal. This is why you feel anxious. This is why you can't focus. This is why nothing feels satisfying anymore. And for those of you over 50, over 60, over 70, this matters even more. Your dopamine system is already declining naturally with age. You have fewer dopamine receptors, less dopamine production. You cannot afford to dysregulate what you have left. Yet that's exactly what's happening. I see patients every single week who come to me, depressed, anxious, unable to sleep, unable to concentrate. They've been to multiple doctors. They're on 4 different medications. And you know what the problem is? They're dopamine depleted. Their brains are exhausted from constant overstimulation. But here's the extraordinary news, and this is why I'm so passionate about this. You can fix it. Your brain has this remarkable capacity called neuroplasticity. It can heal. It can reset. But you have to give it the chance. I'm going to tell you something that sounds completely counterintuitive. You need to embrace discomfort. You need to actively seek out activities that are initially uncomfortable, even boring. Cold water immersion, vigorous exercise that makes you breathe hard, long walks without your phone, sitting in silence, reading difficult books that require concentration. Why? Because when you lean into pain, the healthy kind of pain, the kind that comes from effort and discipline, your brain produces its own dopamine naturally, endogenously, in a way that restores balance instead of destroying it. This isn't about willpower. This isn't about being tough. This is about understanding the neuroscience and working with your biology instead of against it. I had a patient, 73 years old, came to me completely demoralized. Couldn't remember names, couldn't focus, felt like his life was over. We did something radical. We removed all the supernormal stimuli for 30 days. No smartphone scrolling, no binge watching, no processed foods engineered for addiction. We replaced it with walking, with reading physical books, with face-to-face conversations, with cold showers every morning. 30 days later, he was a different person. Sharp, engaged, optimistic. His wife said it was like getting her husband back. This is available to every single one of you. But you have to understand what you're up against. We're living in an environment that's more addictive than any previous generation has ever faced. The companies designing your apps employ neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists specifically to make their products as addictive as possible. They know exactly what they're doing. You need to know what they're doing too. Here's my challenge to you. Take back control of your dopamine system. Start small. Pick one thing, just one, that you know is giving you empty artificial pleasure and remove it for 30 days. Not forever. Just 30 days. Let your brain reset. Let your pleasure-pain balance restore itself. And add something hard, something that requires genuine effort, something that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Because that's where the magic happens. That's where your brain remembers how to generate authentic pleasure, sustainable pleasure, the kind that doesn't leave you depleted and craving more. The science is unequivocal on this. We have the data. We understand the mechanisms. The question is, are you willing to act on it? Because I promise you this, the quality of your next 10, 20, 30 years depends entirely on the choices you make right now about how you're going to treat your brain. You can continue down the path of overstimulation and depletion, or you can choose restoration and balance. Your brain is waiting. It wants to heal. It wants to function the way it was designed to function. But it needs your help. It needs you to create the conditions for recovery. This is the most important health intervention you can make, and it costs nothing. No prescription required, no insurance needed, just understanding, intention, and commitment. The dopamine crisis is real, but so is your capacity to overcome it. I've seen it happen hundreds of times in my practice. And it can happen for you. The question is, will you let it? The pleasure-pain balance in your brain is not a metaphor. It's a physical mechanism. And understanding this single concept will transform everything about how you approach aging, health, and mental clarity. When you experience pleasure, dopamine floods your system, but immediately your brain compensates by tipping in the opposite direction to restore equilibrium. This isn't weakness, this is survival biology. But here's what's destroying us. We're living in constant tilt toward dopamine excess, and your brain is frantically overcorrecting, which is why you feel anxious, depleted, and unable to experience joy from simple things anymore. Abstinence is the most powerful intervention we have. And I'm not talking about some trendy dopamine fast. I'm talking about deliberate, strategic removal of supernormal stimuli for exactly 30 days to allow your neural pathways to reset completely. Your brain needs time without the constant bombardment to restore its baseline sensitivity to dopamine. This means identifying your drug of choice, whether it's your smartphone, streaming binges, processed foods, online shopping, or social media, and removing it entirely for 1 month. The first 2 weeks will be uncomfortable, even painful, but around day 14 something remarkable happens. Your brain starts producing its own dopamine naturally again. And suddenly a walk outside, a real conversation, reading a book becomes genuinely pleasurable in a way you'd forgotten was possible. The honest truth that no one wants to hear is this: discomfort is the currency of resilience, and we've bankrupted ourselves by avoiding every form of struggle. Cold exposure, vigorous exercise that makes you breathe hard, boredom, delayed gratification, difficult conversations. These aren't punishments, they're medicine. When you voluntarily lean into healthy pain, your brain releases dopamine on the other side of that pain as a reward for perseverance, and this creates sustainable, lasting pleasure that doesn't deplete you. This is why people who exercise regularly report better moods, why cold plunge enthusiasts talk about mental clarity, why meditation practitioners describe profound peace. They're not superhuman. They understand that the path to pleasure runs directly through temporary discomfort. Your environment is more powerful than your willpower. And this is where most people fail because they're trying to resist addiction through sheer determination while swimming in an ocean of triggers. You cannot white-knuckle your way out of compulsive behavior if your phone is in your pocket, if Netflix autoplays the next episode, if your kitchen is stocked with hyper-palatable foods engineered in laboratories to override your satiety signals. Change your environment radically and completely. Physical barriers between you and your drug of choice. Remove apps from your phone, cancel subscriptions, change your route home if it takes you past temptation. The Stanford students I work with who successfully overcome addiction don't do it through motivation. They do it through environmental engineering that makes the addictive behavior inconvenient and the healthy behavior automatic. The truth about aging that will save your cognitive future is this: your dopamine system is already declining naturally after 50, which means you have less margin for error than younger people. And every instance of overstimulation costs you more than it used to. You're operating with reduced dopamine production, fewer receptors, and slower recovery times. Which is why that wine habit that was manageable at 30 is devastating at 60. why the scrolling that was just annoying at 40 is creating clinical anxiety at 70. But here's the liberation in this science. Small interventions have outsized impacts because your system is so sensitive now. 1 month of abstinence, daily cold showers, eliminating seed oils and ultra-processed foods, 30 minutes of walking without your phone. These simple changes create dramatic improvements in brain function, mood stability, and mental clarity, because you're working with biology instead of fighting against it. And your aging brain is incredibly responsive to the right environmental inputs when you finally give it what it desperately needs.